It's a straight line.
Good evening. Welcome again to I Choose Me, where purpose collides with authenticity. Tonight's show is a very heartfelt show. We are still honoring domestic violence. And tonight, though, we're going to have a different conversation. We'll be discussing the children who are victims and grow up with the staggering mental and emotional baggage of witnessing domestic violence. But I have some wonderful sisters with me tonight who will be discussing this, sharing their personal stories, sharing some expertise. I have the wonderful, the beautiful Miss Tanya Bankston, who is, of course, known as the Change Doula. She is also an author, a counselor, just name it. She's been a wonderful friend and sister, and I'm so excited to have her tonight. And then I have my soror, the wonderful, the motivational Monet Harris. She is phenomenal, sincere. She has a story, and we just want to have a candid conversation about children who are exposed to domestic violence and the mental, emotional, and spiritual impact that it causes them as children, but also as they grow up and maneuver in school and relationships and decision making and all of those things. So, welcome tonight. We're glad that you are here. Tune in. We ask that you tag someone so that we can get this conversation started. If this is an issue that you have experienced personally, please feel free to join us. So, Miss Tanya, I know I called this sister at the last minute and she said yes. And so, why don't you just kind of share what brings you here tonight?
So, when Dr. C contacted me and asked me to be a part of this discussion, I thought for a minute. I said, oh, okay, I can do that. What I did not know in the process was that I had a healing gap. There was a space in between that little girl inside of me that witnessed domestic violence, that little girl that was a victim of sexual abuse, which is domestic violence, and the woman that I am today. And so this, from the moment Dr. C contacted me until this very moment, I had to ask myself, today, am I going to show up as that healed child, healed adult, wounded child, healed adult with clinical experience, or wounded child, wounded adult? Like it took me to all of those places. So I just want your permission, Dr. C, to be in this space where I can be 100% authentic, 100% transparent, and like they say in the 12-step community, get butt naked honest so that I can heal, right? So
you know you got my permission, so we not that's a no-brainer.
Yes, so, yes. I just need to make sure the whole space. I'm gonna try not to cry because I realize that there's some parts that still need some work and some healing.
Look, you know, we gotta stop trying not to cry. Let's pause there. Sometimes we need to cry.
Yes.
Crying is not a negative thing. It's not a weakness. It's a part of life. And I think the more we allow ourselves to cry, the better we might feel. So I want to hear from my sister. I know I asked her as well. She has to come back on. She got clicked off. But I just want to share some statistics. Every year, an estimated 3.3 million to 10 million children are exposed to domestic violence in their homes. Exposed, of course, by their caregivers, their parents. Studies investigating the prevalence of child abuse find that almost 900,000 children are classified as maltreated by parents or caretakers. Now, just leave that thought, and I will have my sister Monet to just kind of share what brings her here this evening.
Well, you asked me here, but I do have a background where I grew up in a household where it was prevalent. And so I'm just going to talk about my experience and how I guess discovering as I got older and then having two boys kind of brought it back to, okay, you need to handle that thing. You need to figure that thing out. You need to be able to move in a direction that's like, so that they want to experience the same thing, or your filters that you're going through, they're not affected by it.
Well, let's rock and roll. So one of the things though about children, and I'll just give the basics and we can go on into our private stories. Children who are exposed to domestic violence suffer with social anxiety, depression, and this is in the school environments, anger, aggression. And as we get older, or as they get older, sometimes even diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Of course, the impact of abuse impacts relationships, communication, trust. It impacts every area in all characteristics of their lives. And so, Monet, if you could just share a little bit about your story and how it impacted you.
Story. It wasn't beautiful.
Can't hear you.
Beautiful. I didn't know anything. Right? I didn't know anything about drug abuse. I didn't. It was almost like created this perfect to the
Just breaking up.
This is a fantasy. Can you hear me?
Yes,
can you hear me now?
Now.
Okay, so it might be the light. See,
Okay.
come on, enemy. Don't know. Not today.
Right.
So I didn't experience any of this until after my mother went to the army. And so we stayed with our aunt. And so that's where it began, age 9. And the first time we experienced, of course, we're scared. It's my twin sister and I. And we've never seen anything like this. So this is our uncle and our aunt. And so now we're like, what's really going on? And so as it was a continuous thing. It was never like one and done, two and done. It was not a weekend that, from my memory, that the police wasn't at our house. And then they both were in the church. So now it's like a trifecta now, because now you're shouting in the church and the pastor knows about it, but yet you whooping on my auntie at home, you know? And so for me, to protect my aunt, because she was my favorite aunt, to protect her, I jumped in it. And so now the men that I thought that was supposed to protect us, that's starting to build that filter in the back. My dad wasn't really in my life. That's that building that filter. Then you got the pastor who knows about it. Now you're building another filter. And then now I'm fighting. So my level of volatility was like, it was no fear factor. It was like, we gonna do whatever. So every male, and then my uncles, my biological uncles, aren't there to stop it or protect her. So as I'm going through, I didn't trust men at all. I didn't trust them at all. And so I operated more, I guess, more in a masculine energy. So I figure if I show you I'm strong enough, you can't touch me. I'm not weak. You know what I'm saying? So all through high school, it was older men that were attracted to me, but I was so tough that wall was like, shoo. So now I'm not letting you in. Now I don't trust you. So coaches, principals, it was like I dealt with them with like a long handle spoon. And so now I figured my tongue was sharp. So if I can get to you before you can get to me, I'm untouchable. And then I grow up, I go to college. Again, I'm meeting, I'm intelligent. I played sports, so I had a different type of physique. And so, but men was like, you got to take that wall down. I'm like, no, I don't trust you. But I will let them know, if you ever attempt to put your hands on me, it is over. And I've only had 2 guys try it, and it was true to my word. I was out of there. I was even out of there before, like, if you exhibited something that was familiar to what I went through. If your voice got too loud, if you got too close to my face, if you grabbed me, I thought was a little bit too aggressive, I was like, I'm done. Or I would flip. I would like flip out. And I can become violent. I could become because it was almost like I'm back to that 8-year-old girl that's protecting her aunt, except now I'm protecting me. And then with my twin sister, it was a total opposite. She was in a DV situation. So I'm like, how can you let somebody put their hands on you? And we grew up like that. And I was the total opposite, but I was, and again, and I would walk around, I would emasculate. My tongue was sharp. So, just praise God that he helped me out with that. But that tongue was sharp. And so it's like, I got to get to you before you get to me. So my femininity and my soft side and that vulnerable side and submissive side was almost null and void. And then in the pastors, it was like, let me make sure. It made me stronger in one way while I studied the word for myself. But it was like you and leadership and me submitting to that leadership was real sketchy. It was like 50-50. Because again, I'm looking at all the men that played a role in help building that particular human being. And it wasn't until, and I'm not going to be long-winded, but it wasn't until I gave birth to my first son. And me and his father, I mean, yeah, we was like oil and water. And we would get into it. And then I dismissed him. So now I'm a single parent. Although the door is open for his children, my kids don't see that dynamic. And when my son would do stuff like he would play with my niece, if I thought he was too rough, I got really aggressive with him. So I'm working out my own stuff onto my son, which caused a volatile environment for us, especially as he went into being a teenager. And then it was like you working through, you taking out childhood stuff on this little boy. He don't know nothing of it. All he wants is your nurturing, your love. And you play with her too rough. You don't hit no girls. You don't hit women. And I'm like, why are you talking to him like that when he has to learn? He has to learn. And then I got back with the father because I didn't want him out of the house. And we had a second son. And then I left for good because he and I were arguing. He grew up in the same type of environment as well. But for some reason, he felt like and I told him, I said, hey, it's certain triggers that I have. And I thought my triggers were justifiable instead of working through them to heal them. I thought they was justifiable. So when he got loud and we going back and forth because he's strong-headed, I'm strong-headed, he jumped in my face, I automatically go to, I got to defend myself now. And it wasn't until the youngest one, Michael, was like 2 or 3, and I saw him jump in the middle of us arguing. He was like, to his father. And I said, I got to go. I got to go and I got to get help. I said, I got to go and I got to get help. Because now he's exhibiting what I exhibited with my aunt and my uncle. Wow. Like, I never put my hands on a guy, but verbally, mentally, and emotionally, I was an abuser.
And see, I
had to come.
You had to come clean.
Oh, absolutely. And I was like, I was an abuser, and it was coming through the filters of seeing that. Although I wouldn't hit you, and if you did attempt to hit me, I would hit back. But I felt like I was justifiable because some of the stuff I provoked. And not saying that it's okay, but you can provoke somebody so much to the point where they snap too. They have a limit too. And it was life altering. And I think the realization too, that I left a lot of broken hearts in the wake of who I was. And it was that chaos on that side. It's a chaos. And I was like, I can't keep breaking hearts. I got to figure out why is it this and why don't I operate in my femininity? Why do I feel like I got to be like this warrior all the time? And I had to learn how to trust again. And it's a work in progress because I'm still growing with it. I am still growing with it. And it cost me part of the relationship with my oldest son. And the youngest son is getting a more healed version, but it's still a work in progress. Even leaving my current relationship, it was like, yeah. Like,
and wow, that's news to me. Thank you for that announcement on Finally I Choose Me.
Yeah, so yeah. And that's a whole different caveat too, but sometimes your brokenness attracts other brokenness and you can't build with a faulty foundation. So
you have just given us a whole therapeutic beginning, middle part, but no, I appreciate your honesty because even though I decided this, I had to think about my own experiences. And it was only till I became an adult. Now, I was an abuser as well because my mouth is like lethal, and I didn't really realize what was the core of it, And then I was one that if you got loud with me, I would pick up something and throw it at you because in my head, I'm going to win. So it turns into a battle instantly if you got loud with me. But it wasn't until I was an adult that I reflected on an incident in my household, and my brothers and I jumped on our father. And it didn't dawn on me till I was an adult. Like, why are we as children fighting our father to get him off our mother? How sick is that? And so connecting those dots. And when I look back on some of my pictures as a kid, I mean, I looked mad, but I had a reason to be mad. And so really trying to make that transformation and not damaging your own kids or people because of just not being healed. We accomplish things because we are overachievers. Okay, I got to do this because I got to make sure this don't happen, that don't happen. But yet I'm still unhealed, but I'm an achiever. So I really appreciate you sharing the in-depth of that. I don't think we had these conversations enough. And, we can't heal unless we talk about what happened. And it's not who we are, but what happened to us matters because it affects every trajectory of our life in every phase. And we can, do some of the most wonderful things in the world and heart still be broken from something that happened in childhood, especially domestic violence and growing up as the abuser and attracting people that will abuse you. So I see you, Tanya, shaking your head. So what are your thoughts?
Oh my God. So I can relate in so many different ways with that sharp tongue. That
we got that.
And just being angry and not understanding what the connection to that anger is. My story is a little different because it's both sexual abuse and physical abuse. And I can remember as early as 5 being sexually abused, which looking back on it now, I'm like, I have a granddaughter that's 5, and to see her in her innocence and to know that she is that very age that I was when I was first touched, and to be in a space where you're touched inappropriately and you don't have the words to say, hey, somebody's doing something to me, it's inappropriate, because this is an adult that's doing it. And you think adults are supposed to protect children, not prey on children. And at some point, be in that space where your body is going to respond to the sexual advances, and it's confusing for you as a child. It's like, okay, this is shameful, this is dirty, this is bad, but yet my body is responding to it. It's confusing. So I learned very, very early on that men can't be trusted, which is the same thing that Monet said. And I can remember being in a space where I'm coming to tell, and I'm told to shut up. Don't talk about that. Nobody believes you. You're making that up. And I'm like, but no, this really happened to me. And I need somebody to listen. I need somebody to hear me, and I'm just told, you talk too much, or you're being too grown, or you're being too fast. But I'm like, no, I need somebody to stand up for me. I need somebody to protect me. and there was nobody there. There was no, the adults that was supposed to protect me were the adults that was hurting me. And and then seeing that coupled with the same, like I can remember my mom, and I want to say that I was probably about somewhere between 7 and 8. Her boyfriend, her lover, the one that's supposed to be taking care of her, burnt the inside of her thigh with an iron. And I remember that. I remember that. And I didn't remember, you know, of course I was a kid. I didn't know the whys, the hows, all that. But I can remember seeing for many, many years, my mother with an iron wound on her thigh. And I remember a few years before she died, I said, Mom, you know, what happened? Because I can remember you being burned. And my mother was shocked that I remembered that. But, you know, I just remember man after man after man, like hurting her, fighting her, abusing her. And so for me, I can remember as early as 9 years old saying, I don't want a husband. I don't want a man. All they do is hurt you. That's all they do. You know, and I said, I'd rather just have my kids, not even associating that. That's like saying I want to be a single parent. I didn't know that. But it's like, I just want to have my kids and take care of my kids. And I don't want to be bothered with the man because that's all they do is hurt you. You know,
I'm listening to our stories, and each of us, our first child was a boy, were sons. So how does an unhealed mother, because you know our sons, we have to give them our hearts, and I know I didn't play no games, but I was thinking I'm afraid of the world and what the world will do to my son, not thinking what I could possibly do in my aggression, and that they're kids still. They're just little boys. But psychologically, the fear or the lack of trust from previous experiences, it's like, okay, I need to make him be something by any means necessary. You know, I need to make him become something different than what I've been exposed to. And a lot of times we hurt our children, although we love them, we hurt them as mothers because of the pain that we are still, or when becoming a mother, that you're still managing. And so we're operating out of fear and anxiety and out of, you know, toxicity that we've witnessed as kids, especially if you was a young mother. I was a young mother. So I didn't even know anything about healing at that time. And so I'm just thinking, you know, what characteristics were implanted in a young boy whose mother hurting from being abused? You know, what seeds do we plant intentionally or unintentionally in a young boy? We already don't have our femininity. The mouth is lethal. And so how do we contribute to their low self-esteem? Now, we're not physically abusing them, and necessarily not being in a relationship that they witness, but like what Monet said, being an emotional abuser as a result.
Woo, that's loaded. I know for me, with my son, it stayed in the forefront of my mind, right? Like, number one, I'm raising a Black man in America. That's number one. And so there were times where my son needed me to love on him, to nurture him, to mother him. But instead, I couldn't. I was hard. I was hard because my thought was, if I don't raise these boys, I have 2 sons, if I don't raise them to be men and to be tough and to, you know, they're going to go out into this world and the world is not going to be kind to them, you know, and they needed me to be mom. But in the back of my head, it's like I need to be mom and quote unquote dad. And because I didn't even have a dad, and then I seen a string of unhealthy male relationships, now I'm trying to be this unhealthy man to them. So it was real messed up.
Because can a woman be a man? You know what I'm saying? No. Not at all.
Not at all.
No. And I thank God. I thank God for his mercy and his grace, and he's the gap filler, because
baby, you about to preach now.
He is the gap filler, because I'm like, he filled in those gaps that I couldn't. I thought I was doing it, but I was actually causing more damage, and it was damage based on my own brokenness.
Mm-hmm. And that's what children who are exposed to violence, any abuse, it stunts the stage of development for them. You know, they don't experience a healthy stage of development. And usually it impacts their self-esteem, you know, because my identity, how do I know who I am when what I witness with the people who's supposed to love me, all I see is violence? So when you look at kids today, in today's, I mean, I had my son in 1988. This ain't 1988 compared to today's world in trying to raise kids who are victimized, and now just in all kinds of ways. And not that it didn't happen, we didn't have social media or any of that, but we were raised is what happened in the family stays in the family. But that has murdered our ability to truly be authentic and to talk about the things that hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So Monet, you talked about, I think I like what you said when you said your second son got a better version of you. Now, what did she look like in raising the second son?
She was free. She was, I had to let go of control. I had to understand that although these babies are gifts to me, and I'm a steward over them, and I can't control a life that doesn't necessarily belong to me. And so with him, I show him a lot more love, a lot more freedom to be who he, because they're going to be the men they want to be. I don't care. I can put the good, I can put what I believe is good in them. They're going to be the men that they want to be. With the second son, I let go of a lot of control. So the older one, I wanted to control so much of his life, so much like I got to control this, and you got to be this, and it was smothering him. And so there was some challenges with him, but he's 21 now, 21, and he's getting there. My 14-year-old, he's like arriving there. And I won't say it's such his self-esteem as much, but his trust and a lot of it, because I didn't deal with my daddy issues either. That when his father was like, I'm working, he thought if he couldn't be with me, he really couldn't deal with the kids, which I thought was just asinine. And his son was dealing with that anger on top of me being tough on him. And I was tough on him in regards to don't let nobody walk over you. You stand up to everybody. You look at everybody in the eye, and not understanding that he still had some issues over here. And then coupled with his mama, who was tough, that his mama, I showed up. I almost fought a kid for my kid. It sounds crazy, but I was like, you don't let nobody. No, so he saw like, dang, my mama always showing up. Dad's not showing up, but mom's showing up, and she's tougher than dad, not knowing that I'm tough because that's the filter that I had instead of loving you. When he used to get bullied, he was a little socially awkward, very intelligent, very intelligent at a very early age. And so the kid, I taught him how to conflict resolute. And that was one thing I was proud of, because I didn't say you don't use your fist for everything. And he kind of like didn't have a lot of friends, but I was like, you're going to find your tribe. In high school and in college, you're going to find your tribe. And so when he didn't have a lot of friends, it kind of, and he was getting picked on, instead of me loving on him and saying and trying to explain to him why he may be being picked on and how he camps on him for stuff, I would get mad. Don't let nobody touch you. And I'm showing him the same aggressions those kids show him. So with the new version of this one, and it's crazy because sometimes God will give you a kid that you were. And so my Michael was kind of like double what I was in school. I was a lot of trouble. Lord, I if any teachers see this, I so apologize for who I was. But Michael threw hands first and talked later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I got the reverse, but both my kids have huge hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, you got to nurture. And I was so much more open with him. It wasn't like, hey, your kids don't need to know this and kids need to be seen and not heard. That's garbage. That is so garbage because your kids, although your babies, they're your babies, they still have emotions too. They still have feelings too. They're just a younger age.
Yes.
That's it. So if they get mad, you can't say, I'm going to give you something to get mad for. You ain't got no reason to be stressed. They might be stressed in high school.
Yeah.
Right. They might just be stressed in high school and they have a different level of stress. It's a different time for them. And I had to learn how to empathize and sympathize with them. And that's what a lot of both of them get now. But the second one really got it. And then I think too, the situation with the youngest one, he was in ICU and he almost died. And so watching that and like watching him almost leave this earth really was like, you know what, get your stuff together and really live. I was like, you're not living. And I couldn't keep taking from the past and bringing it to the present because you'll have a for certain future with that exact same thing. And I had to start letting go. And I forgave my uncle, but it wasn't until after he died. And then I felt the weight come off because he died of pancreatic cancer. And the way he died was so horrible. And I was like, that's what you get, all the stuff you did. And I was like, no, like that's not. And once I forgave him, that weight left. And now I was no longer operating through. And so now I just trust people on the basis of don't give me a reason not to trust you. So it's never like you got to earn my trust. It's like you have it and then you can lose it. But then I'm okay with it. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was to control the abuse, the domestic violence and stuff that caused control issues with me.
It does.
If I couldn't control it, I had a problem. Then I would have like grown women tantrums because I couldn't control it. So
I like that.
It's
what's a grown woman tantrum?
And now I got to stump off. I got to slam a couple doors. I got to scream louder than everybody else. And it's just like, communicate. Like, you're not going to control areas. Some stuff you just got to let go.
But that's out of fear. It's out of fear of not knowing what's going to happen next. As a child growing up in that environment, I can remember 1 week we over here with some cousins. Another week we over here. Because, and I remember saying mine, like, what's up? What's the deal? And back then they would say, well, that's your father.
Yep. I was a professional new kid, 9 different schools, because we moved so much.
Yes, me too. Same here.
We didn't get stability until my mother came back. When my mother came back when we were 16, we had stability again. We didn't have it before then. But then we came back because she did a couple tours in the army and she came back and we was just like, who was this woman? But she didn't know us either. From 9 to 16, that's a huge gap of dealing with all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
So we had to learn each other all over again, but we had stability this time. It wasn't where we moving to. I was tired of introducing myself in school or people trying to figure out what I'm about. I ain't had no friends because I'm new, like all the time new.
All the time new.
and
we laughing now, but
I don't know about you all, but for me, being in abuse and always being the new kid, it caused me to be a people pleaser. I was in that space where it's like, okay, I don't want to be rejected and I don't want to be abandoned again. So let me fit in.
Oh, I was mean.
Yeah, let me fit in. I had to fit in. Like I didn't go outside of my way to do things to really make me, fit in. But I so desire friends and stability and normalcy, and not dealing with toxicity and not having to explain that toxicity all the time. That I people pleased.
I can see how that could. I'm reflecting on I went to about 5 elementary schools and I would be like, showing. Now that I look back, I probably had some kind of social anxiety, because not only did I show up in these different spaces, like I always talk about being tall, I was always taller than every single person in the class. And then it felt like I was taller than the teacher.
I was always the smallest.
And so it created this awkwardness, of just always feeling awkward, just always, not feeling a part of something. And that really travels with you throughout your lifespan, until we begin the healing process, intentional healing process. And so I want us to take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to talk about how do we become feminine again, or what was the healing journey? Because it's so important for people to know. I know we couldn't have kids on the show talking about that, so we're speaking in honor of children who are suffering. And so any parents who may be in this situation need to consider their children and do something different. So let's take a quick break and we'll be back.
Oh, that's how you take a break? You just...
No,
Okay.
they supposed to be.
Oh, man.
No, I was expecting something to come on, but maybe not. Let's keep going. Healing. I hear the term now more than I ever have in my entire life and career. But what did that look like? Like, what was the turning point to say, I need to be healed from this?
For me, and I have to be careful how I say this, my brother unlifed himself. Okay. My mother had 4 children, and by this time I had my first son. My first son and my brother were like this. My son was 6 years old and he was like major depressed. And I'm like, how does a 6-year-old show up with major depression? That just like blew my mind. I'm like, what can you be depressed about at 6 years old? But it was that experience that taught me, hey, it's some major healing that needs to take place, and I need to start with him. And I can remember taking him to therapy. He's 6. And I can remember being so angry that I had to be in therapy with him while he's 6 and feeling like ain't nothing wrong with me. It's something wrong with him. But no, it was something wrong with the whole family. And it went back generations, and I say, okay, Tanya, start with you. Start with you and start with your child and then just move forward. So that was the big catalyst right there for me. Like, my baby is sick. He's crying out. He would go to school and like literally sit at his desk and hold his hand on the floor. Like, so one hand on the desk, one hand on the floor. And I'm like, why does he do that? And the therapist said, because he's trying to stay grounded. And that just blew me away. That opened up my mind. Like, stop focusing so much on your own self, Tanya, and focus on helping this baby to get some healing.
Yeah. Sometimes through the mouth of babes. For me, I didn't like myself. I woke up one day. I said, "You didn't travel the world. You're making more money than your family has ever made. You got all these letters behind your name, BA, MBA." And I'm saying, I don't like myself. I had to look at the wake of chaos I was leaving behind me. And it was like, I was like the orchestrator. Like, people liked to be around me. I was funny. I was loving. I was open. But I had like another sinister side that was like, you got chaos too. Like, you could shake some stuff up and then watch 2 people go at it. And you don't even know why they're going at it. And it's because of you. And I didn't like myself. I said, I don't like what I'm seeing. And I wanted to break that curse. I said, I don't want my boys to go in to an era where they feel the same way. Or it was like, if I didn't, it was almost like if I didn't change those two gifts that I got, they would have been destroyed. And I said, I can't do that. I said, and I said, I got to do it for myself. I said, and then too, I want to feel free. You know, you always feel like you carrying so much baggage all the time. And I was like, I just want to just be free, you know, and for me, and it wasn't an easy road because now healing is so popular. Girl, you need heal, you know, everybody throwing it around. For me, it was like, I first started with prayer. And then I started with forgiving myself. I started with forgiving my mother because I was kind of angry that she left. And I spoke to her through that anger, which was not fair to her. I wrote her a letter and I said, you don't got to write back. I just want to apologize to you. You know what I'm saying? Then I forgave my kid's father. And then I forgave myself because you know how you got to put yourself in the mix. It ain't everybody's fault. It is just not.
I like that. Yeah.
Starting with forgiveness. And then sometimes when the student is ready, the teachers will appear. And that's just real. And I went to therapy myself because I was tired of being angry. Like I was a fighter. You know, you could still see some of the war wounds on my hands. I was a knuck if you buck. And I was like, I don't want that. I don't want that. And then that opened the door for my femininity. And then accepting compliments. I never knew that I couldn't accept compliments. And I never knew where that came from. People say you pretty. I'm like, yeah, but I don't like this eyeshadow.
Right.
I had to, and I realized they came from all that stuff I was carrying. And I couldn't be free. As long as I could figure out if it was something wrong with me, then that would justify whatever my actions or inactions were. And there was a lot of inactions. And I just had to get real with myself. And I literally went and got help. And I didn't care what it looked like to nobody else. And when you start being able to smile and your face is lighting up, and you attract friends that are going through the same journey of healing, and now the conversation sound different. The air in the room is different. Now you're like, whoo. And I wanted to be open. I was tired of being so closed off. I got friends of 30 years. They like, Monet, I didn't get to know you until about the 20th year because you finally let all that down.
Right.
I was like, man.
The secrets keep you sick. Holding in all of those secrets, it keeps you sick. Like,
it do.
Everybody told you, don't tell what goes on in our house. Don't tell. And at some point, you're holding it all in. It's heavy. Yep. You were weighed down.
Yep.
You are. And then I think I like it too when you say you had to get honest with myself. I can remember my son was going to East Catholic, and the teacher called me, and I was so angry because I'm paying money, and I'm trying to punch on him while I'm driving. Now I'm crazy. I'm driving up Gratiot. Like, boy, I'm sick. You know, I done went crazy. And I said, girl, now wait a minute. You cannot be that mad about that. Like, what else? And really, I had just started going to church, and it was my spiritual, the beginning of my spirit. It's a whole nother story. It's what led me to church. It's all rooted in abuse and anger, trying to run this man over with my car. I'm like, he got to go. I didn't know I was going to try to kill him. I just thought that was the only way out because it was a violent relationship. And so all of this anger, I'm like, I need Jesus Christ, like immediately. And you know, when you go into the field of helping others, you think, you know, if you're sincere, you're not going to ever want to pretend like you can help somebody and you're not healed. And so my prayer was, Lord, heal me so that I could help in that journey of revealing the totality of who I am to myself. And then you're like, oh my God, you know, I got the potential. I ain't suicidal. I'm homicidal. So let me, Lord, please, you know, help me so I don't go to jail was the thing. And so, you know, we carry so much. So Tanya, the Change Doula.
Look, what another thing that like really was the catalyst for me getting myself together was I was married. My son's father had an addiction. He was out drunk up his whole entire check. Came home, no money. I'm like, okay, how am I going to feed my babies for the next 2 weeks until I get paid? And when I tell you, I snapped. I lost my mind in that moment. I lost my mind. I punched him. I choked him. I started ripping his shirt off. My babies jumped up. They ran in the room. They slammed the door shut because they was afraid. They never saw us fight before. I literally lost my mind. I can remember my ex-husband saying, Tanya, you're killing me. Because he was, I mean, he's a man. He could hit me one time and that would have been it. But it was more defense than him trying to, hit me and hurt me. And when he said, you're killing me, because I had my hands around his neck, choking him. And I heard him say that. And it's like, I came back to my mind and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to kill him. And I'm going to go to prison. Who's going to take care of my kids?
Yes.
Who's going to take care of them? And so that right there was that moment that it's like, Tanya, you got to get yourself together. This is all wrong. All wrong. Ain't nothing right about it.
Wow.
About operating in masculinity. I mean, I snapped. I lost my mind.
Oh yeah, people, you see, but that comes from carrying so much. Like the show Snapped, it's some underlining issues that just have built up, and I just appreciate this conversation of us women admitting no longer being victim. We were victimized, but now being the perpetrator of violence and emotional abuse and verbal abuse. And when you look at yourself as a child, people say, oh no, we repeat what we exposed to. We repeat what we're exposed to. And we have to take accountability for, I can no longer say, well, mine, when I was 7, you did this and I'm 50.
Yep.
We have to make some different decisions so that we can live the life God intended. Because I tell you, when I tried to run that man over with my 79 Thunderbird, and I can laugh now, but I was in such a rage that I got stuck in the snow. And I didn't even realize that was God right there.
Yep.
Right in that moment, he saved me. Cause they would have threw away the key. Cause girl, it was no reason. Why did you run over the man with the car? You know what I mean? My son was 3 years old, and that was God. And I never forgot. See, you can never forget when he saved you. You can't forget. And I know without him, drugs, being subjected to violence, kids use drugs. No one decides, I want to be an addict. It's a coping mechanism. And so it's so much that's happening in today's world with our children. I think we just have to be aware. I think people have to be aware and stop blaming the kids for what happens to them.
Yep.
Kids do not heal themselves. And so we just need more parents, more caregivers to be more accountable and stop separating themselves from the issues that the kids are having. And I hear it all the time.
Be honest with them. I hear it
all the time. Well, I don't know what's wrong with them kids. You, mom, you.
Yep. I apologized to my son. He was 17. And I said, I got to apologize to you. I said, I'm sorry. You got the worst part of me at the time. And he just started crying. I was like, you haven't been nothing but a blessing to me. All the ups, all the downs. I was like, but I apologize. And I was just like, I didn't know that I was living through X, Y, and Z. And some people say, you don't got to apologize to your kids. Oh, but you do.
Yeah.
Oh, but you do. And our relationship is so much stronger, so much better. We still bump heads because he's 21 trying to figure it out in my house. And I'm just like, bro, like, what's going on? But we have such a better dialect. And although he's still learning how to communicate with me, he's still learning. He's got this tough exterior too. He's trying to hold everything. At 19, he broke down like, I'm supposed to take care of you. But that was I don't know where he got the idea of that I was struggling. I said, we're not struggling, baby. I said, you just see me in the house, but it's not us struggling. Am I tired? Yes. I was working 70 plus hours. I said, yes, I'm a little tired. Yes, taking you to taekwondo. Yes, taking you to here. I said, but that's my cross to bear, not yours.
Right.
I said, if I had to, I said, it's not yours. And then he was like, I'm a man. I got to take care of you. But that's that narrative of where they're making up their own because he don't see dad doing it. And I'm just like, that's not for you to carry, baby. And so now he's trying to still figure out like, cause he got like a little friend. And she's very soft spoken, very, and he's like, well, that ain't what I'm used to, cause my mama, and I'm just like, but I tell him, I said, it's okay if you want to raise your voice, because that's how you expressing yourself. As long as you don't get disrespectful, I don't have an issue with it. I said, but you can't tailor how I communicate. Now, if I talk real fast when I get mad, don't look at it, and my hand is doing like this. I don't want it. That's just how I communicate. So I'm like, you gotta take words. Now I'm learning to myself too. It's words. Now we can't put intentions to words. Like, now if you confused, you ask them what they meant by it.
Right.
Like, well, like, what did you mean by that? Like, exactly, because this is what I think you said, or what I felt you might have said. And so it's still it's still a journey until the day God said you this. And he said, job well done. It is still a journey. And I told my son, I said, I'm gonna make mistakes until I hit the grave. I'm gonna continue to make mistakes. It's my first time being a parent, man.
Right.
He was like, what? I said, this is my first time being a parent. Your first time being my son. So we gotta grow through it. I'm like, we gotta grow through it. And I just give myself grace and mercy on that. Like, but I also don't give myself grace and mercy as a crutch. Because sometimes we could be like, I'm gonna give myself so much grace and mercy. No, you need to change that thing.
Right.
Like, you need to hold yourself to the fire too.
Right.
And so I reflect. I do a reflection 15 minutes every day when I get done. I don't care how long my day was. I stay up extra 15 minutes and think about what transpired and how can I get better. Because I don't never want to be complacent. But I'm satisfied in the growth that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amen.
That's why you hear my sister, because I can't have anybody crazy on here. That ain't
right, like she said it's their fault. So, what? No.
That's true. Right. So
you help build them.
What would you share to some women who are raising children who are in an abusive relationship right now?
Oh my God. Get out. Get out. I mean, sometimes getting out is a preparation. You have to prepare yourself to get out. It's because you definitely want to get out. You want to remain safe, and you don't go back. And
that's the key.
You don't want to go back to that, but you don't want to go back into an abusive relationship with a new person. Same abuse, different person. Get out. Get help for yourself. Get help for your children, because it's going to be long term. I mean, the ACEs, the ACEs study that talks about exposure of abuse and neglect to children. It affects them long term, like for the rest of their life. I think the only thing that changes that is a personal relationship with Christ, and that's my personal opinion. But doing things like counseling and getting involved in the church, all of that matters and makes a difference.
It does. It does.
And it's a lifelong. It's a lifelong experience.
It is, because you have to continue to understand that you're worthy. You have to believe that you're worthy. You have to continue to affirm yourself. These are practices. Like, we have our spiritual disciplines, the prayer, reading and fasting, but we also have to verbalize to ourselves, affirm ourselves, have better conversations with ourselves. I say cancel all of the lies that you tell yourself and that's been told to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a daily practice of healing, and it's a mental detox. And then sometimes you have to separate, from people that you love, because you're trying to transform and get your mind together.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you decide to get your mind together, it don't mean everybody else is.
And Dr. C, for me, one thing at 5, I learned, because nobody is hearing my voice, that I'm not worthy. So that's been something that has repeated throughout my life. And I have to tell myself over and over and over again, no, the word says that God knew me and he formed me and he shaped me. And he said in his word, I have to, because what the world told me, what people told me was different. And so that worthlessness, it comes up often, and I bind that, I cast that down in the name of Jesus, and I have to fix my mind on what the word says and build up my most holy faith and my self-esteem and my self-confidence over and over and over and over again.
Again and again and again and again.
Yes.
Again, because it's not a one-stop shop. Yes. And that's what I tell women and even men. This is a practice that becomes a part of your life. It's not, I feel better now. So no, because the enemy wants you to die, first of all, and he wants you to die and not be released from victimization. When you operate as a victim, you're not healed, you're not whole. And so we are coming to an end of the show, and I just want to tell women that you are worthy, you are valuable, and you can start over again and again and again, as many times as it takes, because God loves you. Find you a supportive sister, get help, and understand that if you have children, we choose life so that we can live and our seed can live also. So I want to thank, is it anything you ladies, I want you to share just something positive? And Tanya, you can give your information out. You the therapist on the show, the LPC, if somebody needs some help. Monet is a wonderful poet. So she empowers through her motivational Mondays on Facebook and just through her powerful poetry. So anything you ladies want to say before we wrap up?
I would say, if you don't do it for yourself, do it for the people that's coming behind you, because your life is not your own. Some if you don't tell your story, you could be affecting millions of people that's connected to you and your lineage. So it's bigger than just self.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And I would just say, there was a space where I didn't know that I was broken and I needed to be healed. So work on fixing the leaks in your soul.
Now that rolls up in me, but we gotta go. I appreciate you ladies sharing your story, being authentic. That's what finally I Choose Me is about. It's about agreement with God, about who he say we are, no matter what we've gone through, no matter what we've gone through. So I thank you for joining me at the last minute. I just know you had power to bring to the show, and I want you all to have an amazing night and rest of the week.
Awesome sauce.
Join Dr. Crystal Eason every other Sunday at 7 p.m. for Finally I Choose Me, where your purpose and authenticity join together. We look forward to you participating in the discussion. We agree with God about who we say we are. Please join us.